it's Dr. Jenn with Aging Advantage. Today, we're going to be talking about a really interesting, fascinating topic that I just find really exciting. And I think a lot of people, honestly, just don't even ever pay attention to this and how these kinds of activities can really help to enhance their life. And today, we're going to be talking about helping to really redefine your purpose through virtual micro volunteering. And with, again, just all the technology that we have nowadays, I think a lot of people, especially as they get older, or again, disabled persons as well, they feel very limited because of potentially their health issues, or maybe again, because of, their ability to be able to ambulate or move around. Or pain, etc. Sometimes people even just kind of get into this funk where they can kind of start getting a little bit depressed and start isolating and really kind of feeling alone. And so that's where this is an incredible opportunity to be able to connect with other people and to be able to share your gifts and your talents and your light and all the things with everyone else. And so again, just really cool, just kind of interesting, fun topic that I want to share with you guys. Again, just opportunity for all of us to be able to, take care of ourselves a little bit better, but also to be able to share with others, which is kind of neat. So again, Jenn with Aging Advantage. Aging Advantage is a nonprofit, and we are based here out of the St. Louis area. We serve St. Louis and the surrounding area, and we do that through grants and also donations. And we help with lots of different topics and information and education for you all, but we try to focus on different things like housing insecurities, maybe food insecurities, again, isolation issues, getting you all back out there and getting you connected a little bit better. But also, health topics and just different life style education challenges that you all, might be going through as well, to help you really be more resilient and also self-reliant, and do it in a safe manner, which is good. And safety, can mean several things. Safety is not just necessarily our physical health, which, yes, that has to come first, but also safety, is how we feel emotionally and how we feel mentally. And all those three things combined are what really puts together the full package of us feeling safe, if you will. And so that's where we try to help you all kind of learn, like I said, about all kinds of different topics and all kinds of different educational opportunities. So if you find any of this content helpful, please share it with anyone, literally anywhere. It doesn't have to be just here in the St. Louis area. It can be, share this with people literally anywhere around the country that you think would definitely benefit from hearing this information. So thank you all for joining me today, and let's dig in and see what we can learn. So relax, sit back, get cozy, all the things, and let's get started. Okay, so as we get started, like I said, interesting topic, because a lot of us think as volunteering, right, as we're physically going somewhere and we're physically volunteering. And in this case, we're going to really try to put, a 2026, if you will, spin on that. Really to look at, okay, great, but, kind of 2.0, how do we connect, virtually and be able to continue to contribute meaningfully to our communities from the comfort of our own home, especially for those who are, like I said, homebound or living with health limitations. And it's really pretty cool because this is a very new and kind of growing opportunity. that can make such a big impact, again, for older adults and people with disabilities as well. So now I want to start with something, again, that I believe all of us already know intuitively, but again, I think we forget about this sometimes, especially, as we kind of start again, like just isolating, and the more we're only around ourselves and not a whole bunch of other people. But really, at the end of the day, human beings need to feel useful. And when we need to feel that, a lot of times it can be tricky because we want to make sure that we are reaching out for connection and that we're getting that need met in healthy ways that are maintaining our boundaries, our values, our standards, our morals, our ethics, and all the things. And, that we're contributing in a way also that feels good to us and also meaningful to us. So, we need to feel that what we do matters, that, we're contributing to something in the world around us, and that also our skills and our experience and our wisdom have value. And that sense of purpose is not just a nice to have. Research consistently tells us that it is a fundamental driver of health, happiness, and also longevity. And yet, for millions of adults, and that's why we're talking about this, by the way, for millions of adults, especially older adults, particularly those who are more homebound, again, due to mobility challenges, chronic health conditions, or other limitations. Traditional volunteering and community involvement can often feel just like out of reach. And again, something that a lot of us that would be in that position have just completely written off. If I told you, think of 10 different hobbies or 10 different things that you could do, like if you're feeling bored or you're feeling disconnected, for these kind of people, like volunteering, if I told you to list 100 of them, so a lot of times volunteering would not be one of them that these people would list, because again, they feel like some of their conditions and situations are just such barriers, right? And so that's where the world has really moved on without them, they feel like, in some ways. And so they feel like, kind of unfortunately, that they're kind of left behind when it comes to volunteering. And the opportunities that once existed for them, like example, showing up at the food pantry and helping to pass out food. Maybe somebody's volunteering at the library. Maybe somebody's tutoring at the neighborhood school or helping to be like a docent at the art museum or something like that, right? But all of these things require a physical presence that not everyone can honestly manage. And also that, or even if they can manage it, let's say sometimes the volunteering shifts need to be like a 6-hour shift or whatever that is. And sometimes it's you legitimately can't stand that long, or you can't walk around that long or sit up that long or whatever that is. So again, that can put a limitation on you for being able to think that you would align with even those opportunities. And so that's where this whole really cool, spiffy new concept of virtual micro volunteering is being able to absolutely change that paradigm. And so today we're going to explore how that's happening and what exactly this means. So let's talk about the challenge first. And again, before we talk about the solution, let's take an honest look at the problem, because of the scale, it deserves our full attention. So according to 2026 data, over 15 million seniors in the United States are homebound. What does that mean? That means that they rarely or never leave their homes due to physical or health limitations. And a significant portion of those individuals experience profound social isolation, like we talked about in the beginning. Not just the ordinary aloneness that comes from a quiet day at home on purpose, but a deep, more chronic disconnection from community, from purpose, and also from a sense that they matter to the world around them. And again, like they have some kind of value, they have some kind of meaning, and that their life in the past has had some kind of meaning. So this isolation carries, serious consequences. We know from decades of research that chronic loneliness and social isolation are absolutely associated with significantly elevated risks of depression, cognitive decline, and earlier death. Isolated older adults are more likely to experience health crisis, less likely to seek or receive appropriate care. 100% on this one, guys, because we see delayed care all the time in the medical world where people they're not coming in, they're not taking care of themselves. And we've talked about this in previous presentations too, but then by the time, someone, would present to my office, like we're already in stage 3, stage 4 of whatever that disease or diagnosis is going to be, or end stage for that matter, when, they could have actually been recognizing these symptoms for a really long time and been proactive and shown up, when it was only in stage 1, and we could have absolutely, done something about it meaningfully at that stage. And it wouldn't have been like as big of a detriment on themselves, potentially, and everyone around them. So, they're less likely then also because of that to have a positive mental outlook. And a lot of times, unfortunately, for these people as well, when they're not receiving all the care and etc., like they really sometimes then feel like that their best days are just behind them. And, it's just downhill slide from here. And there isn't really anything I can do about it. But here's what I think is most important and often overlooked piece of this. So isolation doesn't just steal health. It steals dignity, and it steals the sense of being a contributing member of society. And that feeling that you still have something to give and something to share. And that loss of purpose can be just as damaging as the physical health consequences. So when we talk about homebound seniors, we're not only just talking about people who have nothing left to offer. We're talking about people with decades of accumulated wisdom, skills, and experience that people want to be connected to. People want to contribute back with sharing, and they, also want to matter and provide value with all their knowledge and skills. So they just need a pathway to do it. Virtual micro volunteering is absolutely a great pathway for that. So what is virtual micro volunteering? So what is it and why, again, is it such a good fit for homebound older adults is what we're going to go through next. Virtual micro volunteering refers to short, flexible volunteering tasks completed entirely online, requiring minimal time commitment. So these aren't long-term obligations or complex assignments. They're, kind of just bite-sized contributions. So things that might take, for example, like 20 minutes, or they might take an hour or a few hours spread across a week. But all those things, again, can then genuinely add up to make a really incredible community impact. And because they're done online from home, they're accessible to people regardless of their mobility, their health status, or also where they live. And the beauty of this model is really in its flexibility, because a person can choose tasks that match their energy for that particular day. They can stop and rest. They can work at their own pace. They can contribute as much or as little as their health is going to allow for that particular day or that particular week, and still feel, though, like they're giving, genuine effort and receiving that genuine satisfaction of having done something meaningful. And what it does for people who participate is, let's look at these three kind of core benefits that research and experience consistently show here. So these are going to be the things in purple here. So let's look at these next. So first, it provides purpose and belonging. So contributing meaningfully, even in small ways, gives people a reason to engage with the day. It fosters a sense of being part of like something larger than themselves. And for someone who's been feeling invisible or irrelevant, that shift in perspective can be absolutely transformative and just incredible for someone's, mental health, which we're going to talk about next. So second, it enhances mental well-being. So regular engagement in purposeful tasks, and in this case, online tasks, has been shown to support cognitive health and emotional well-being because participants will report improved mood, sharper focus, and greater life satisfaction. And when the mind has meaningful work to do, it functions better and it also feels better. And third, it builds digital literacy and social connections. And I think this one is really cool, especially for older people who really can feel very technologically challenged, right? It helps to get them using the technology and it helps them then to become more confident and more comfortable with these digital spaces by online volunteering. And that comfort then opens doors. It allows like kind of that soft skill then to be able to transfer to telehealth appointments, to video calls with family, to other online communities, and also resources that can be incredible for people as they age. And when connections form through volunteering, like again, like with the organizations they serve, with fellow volunteers, and the people's lives who they touch directly, all of these things, basically, like all those connections, directly counter the isolation that so many of these homebound seniors experience. So it kind of helps, again, just keep them connected and kind of undo some of that isolation and sometimes even like depression that people can feel. So, of course, next we're going to be talking about technology enabling connections. So, for virtual volunteering to work, step one, technology has to work. And for a generation of older adults who may not have grown up with smartphones, tablets, etc., even like laptops, computers, all the things, that can feel like a significant barrier for them. So let's talk about what's happening on the technology side to make this more accessible. So the most important development is the growth of user-friendly apps and platforms specifically designed for older adults. These aren't the same interfaces that were built for 25-year-olds and then just handed over to seniors. Like a lot of seniors, feel like most technology is these days, but they're designed from the ground up with accessibility in mind. So they have larger text, they have simplified navigation, high contrast displayed, and guided onboarding processes that walk users through every single step. The goal is that any senior, regardless of prior tech experience, can engage with this type of technology with confidence. And, next we're going to talk about video conferencing and messaging tools. So these things have become far more accessible and far more widely used. So in recent years, especially. So platforms now can allow seniors to connect face to face with organizations that they're supporting. They can also connect face to face with fellow volunteers and with the people they're helping. And this is really cool because it helps to really like bring that human dimension to what otherwise would feel like an abstract, just online task. So it helps a person like really to be able to connect better. So when you can see the face of the person, it's really quite just just I don't know, it's incredible because the person then can see again like the nonverbal, the expressions, and just see that other person like light up. That is going to be truly grateful for your kind of work that you're doing. Or maybe it's like a young person that you're helping to learn how to, teach, like, you're helping the young person to learn how to read. So you're helping teach them maybe like how to read or how to do math or something like that. Maybe you're even just like reading them stories. But for those people whose lives you brightened through those sessions and experiences, you can see them then. And that impact becomes real and becomes personal. It's not just somebody like filling out a form, filling out a sheet, doing busy like admin kind of tasks and then turning it in. Like in this kind of way, people can actually connect and see other people, and it's really impactful and it's neat. And perhaps the most exciting is the emergence of even like AI driven task matching. So, and I know AI can be a little controversial for some people right now, but we're just in this reference, we're just going to pretend for a second like it's a good, helpful tool for the purpose of this conversation. But again, like I know there's a lot of different opinions on it, but the cool thing with AI driven task matching is that smart systems through AI now exist that can access each participant, it's going to be volunteering, their unique skills and also their interests and their availability. And so that's genius because then for these organizations, it allows them to match those micro volunteering opportunities to the volunteer who is best genuinely suited for that type of experience and for that type of activity and task. So, like for example of this, right? A retired teacher would get connected and matched to a library support network, or like a former accountant could help small nonprofit with, data organization. Maybe someone who was like a musician could help teach, music classes to kids. Maybe someone who's been like a lifelong storyteller would get paired with an intergenerational connection program, for example. But, the bottom line with this is that the right task gets then connected to the right person every time and make sure that that alignment aligns. So it's not like, for example, you'd have an organization that's all about like teaching, people how to garden and how to grow their own food at home, for example. It's not like you have somebody that is going to have like an engineering background potentially that you're going to be asking them to teach, people how to garden, because obviously that's it could be, there could be engineers that do gardening, no judgment, no whatever, it's a possibility. But point being, it would make sense, a lot more sense to have, somebody who owned like a nursery their whole entire life, back in the day, um, be a person that would, like nursery in terms of like growing plants nursery, not like a little kid, not like a little kid baby babysitting kind of a nursery in this example. So, like a nursery, like greenhouses, stuff like that. It would make sense for that person to teach those kind of classes and, help volunteer for those kind of activities. And so that's where it's really kind of cool because, when you're employing like this kind of technology, when it's designed thoughtfully, it doesn't create, distance. It actually creates even more meaningful, purposeful connection. And that's exactly what's, then able to happen. Now, let me share some real world examples of virtual micro volunteering actually, and kind of what it looks like in practice, because I think this is kind of where the concept like really comes to life. And like I said, I just kind of explained a little example of like the nursery person teaching gardening, for example, but we're going to expand on that. So in 2026 alone, over 10,000 seniors engaged in virtual micro volunteering programs nationally. And among those participants, researchers documented of, this is so cool, guys, 40% improvement in mood and sense of community. And that's not a small shift. Like, just so that you know, in Doctorland, behind the scenes on this side of the screen, if we can get like sometimes, good grief, if we can get like a 7% or 10% shift in, numbers and data, we're like, that's good. We'll take it, success kind of, right? Obviously, the higher the number, the better. But to be able to have a 40% shift, that's not small. That's meaningful, that's measurable, and that's a huge change in how people feel about themselves and their place in the world. And I love, love, love that. So, what are these people doing? Let me give you some examples. So, example, like I said, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, right down the list here. So, example number one, they're transcribing historical documents. For example, so the seniors across the country have been volunteering to digitize and transcribe historical records for national digital archives. So, might be like example, old letters, census records, newspaper clippings, legal documents, etc. And this work preserves cultural and historical heritage that might otherwise be lost. It requires careful attention, yes, good reading comprehension, and some patience for sure. But qualities that a lot of older adults have, like in abundance. And participants describe it as being deeply meaningful and a sense of contributing, as something also too, this is so cool, to something that will outlast them and honoring the past while still actively participating in the present and contributing to the future and the future of, their whole community as a whole. And so this could be really cool. Another thing is going to be number two, so virtual companionship and storytelling. So homebound seniors are connected with young people through virtual storytelling sessions. So sharing life experiences, maybe also family histories and hard-won wisdom as well, and experiences like that across generational lines. And these connections, kind of like almost mentoring, if you will, think of it kind of like that sometimes, but these connections benefit everyone involved because young people can gain perspective, right, and that mentorship. And older adults can gain connection, relevance, and profound satisfaction knowing that their experiences in the past and their stories matter. So, intergenerational bonds also being formed here through these programs can also become lasting relationships and, friendships, if you kind of want to think about it that way as well, and can just be really, really heartwarming and, and just an incredible sense of community for, again, the older people and the younger people as well. And third, we're going to talk about social media moderation for nonprofits. And this is a cool one, and this totally surprises people for sure. But think about it. So many small nonprofits desperately need help managing their online presence and community engagement, but they don't necessarily always have the staff to do it. So seniors who are comfortable being online and volunteering to help monitor social media pages, they can also respond to comments. They can flag inappropriate content And all these things can contribute to like real needed skills. And they can do it again in totally short, flexible bursts that can fit into their daily life, whatever is convenient for them. And, these things are not, trivial contributions. These are meaningful, skilled acts of service. And the people doing them, again, are homebound seniors who, not long ago, may have believed that their contributing days were absolutely behind them. And, totally, again, not the case, which is amazing. So, as we wrap up today, I just want to speak to both the people who might participate in these virtual micro volunteering sessions and to those who can help make it more available and accessible. So, if you are a homebound older adult or if you know one, I want you to hear this clearly. You still have so much to give. So, your experience, again, your patience, your skills, your perspective, the things that you have struggled through, grown through, and just the person you've become on the other side of it. These things are not obsolete. These are much needed stories and much needed information that needs to be shared. And so, there are now real accessible ways to contribute from exactly where you are. So this virtual micro volunteering is one of those ways. And I encourage you to explore it for sure. Your community still needs you, and connecting with all of it, and doing as much as you can do, for yourself and also for your community is really like a great, like I said, purposeful, meaningful way to still be able to engage. So for those of you who work in healthcare or in senior services or in community organizations, you absolutely have a role to play too. So promoting awareness of virtual micro volunteering through senior centers, healthcare providers, or community networks helps more people discover these kinds of opportunities. So providing basic technology training and support can help seniors get comfortable with the tools that they need. And, a lot of times, guys, again, like we talked about, this is like one, as soon as I said, a lot of you are going to go here in your brain, and I know this. So again, as soon as I said virtual micro volunteering, I'm sure a lot of you were automatically like, oh, yep, I'm out, done. But again, first barrier we have to overcome is being able to use the tools. So that is where, those of you connected to nonprofits and community organizations, can consider designing micro tasks that remote volunteers can complete from home that are, user friendly in terms of the different tools, etc., that people can use. So the talent pool then that you're going to be drawing from is really like extraordinary when you look at, again, those of you who are connected to nonprofits and community organizations, when you look at, okay, how do I get volunteers who can do, again, some of these micro tasks remotely? You have just opened up your whole entire world to being able to use, and access so many different types of people and again, experiences and things like that, that can really help to like flourish and grow and expand your mission and your also, your purpose and all the ways that you can share and all the ways that you can also show up and support others in your community. And so, I think together we can really help to unlock some, new purpose, new connections for household seniors across, St. Louis and really beyond. And where this really begins is just, one small task at a time for sure. And, meaningful connections will also be contributed back to the person volunteering as well. And I love that because, again, when one life is re-engaged in the community, um, that that's what it's really like all about. And again, whether it's for the person that is volunteering or it's for the person that is receiving on the other end. And really, again, like that synergy is just beautiful. And again, through technology, we're able to just release and open up all those barriers and just allow that flow and that connection to happen. And it's just so beautiful and so exciting. So thank you all for joining me today. And, I know, again, this is exactly the kind of conversations that can change things and can start the ball rolling. And so just thank you for being here and for being a part of it. And again, definitely like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel and, follow the Facebook page so that you don't miss any other classes like this and learning opportunities. But until next time, take good care of yourselves, stay connected, please, please, please. And we'll see you next time and take care of each other. Thanks.